Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be talking specifically about how to win as support when your AD carry fails. But you could also apply this if you play other lanes, such as how to win in general when someone on your team is underperforming. All right, I'm going to focus specifically on support because I think that a lot of times people misunderstand that the success of a support is intrinsically tied to the success of the AD carry. And that's not always true. Sometimes it is, right? Like, it obviously helps if you have a good AD carry, but you still can have a high impact on the game. You still can win, even if your AD carry is a turkey, right? So even if they're not doing that well, you can still win. So that's what this video is going to talk about. Although, as I said, it can also apply to other roles as well and other sort of game states. If you don't have time to watch the whole video, you can always find this Google Doc in the description, and I'll also have timestamps down there as well. If you like the content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and come check out the live stream if you want sometime. It's a lot of fun. We have a wonderful community. I try to answer as many questions as I can. We have lots of very, friendly, knowledgeable people in the chat as well that can give you some insights into things, and we just usually laugh, joke, have a good time. So come check it out. It's every night around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'd love to have you. Okay. So number one is you have to understand, well, what is unique about support and what allows them to win. And I think this is something that's misunderstood by a lot of people, and even at the highest levels. I'll hear people that are challengers saying like, oh, you can't win a support, don't play support. You can't carry a support. And a lot of it comes down to this concept of carrying, right? And what that means. And does that mean have a lot of damage on your team? Or could that mean something else? The concept of a carry is really kind of what we're going to be talking about here, is how do you have an outsized influence that can compensate for someone on your team underperforming? That's what a carry means. You pick somebody up, you carry them to the finish line, and you win. Okay? However, that's often misconstrued as do a lot of damage, which that is one form of carrying, but that's not always the form of carrying, right? Otherwise, supports would never win games, right? Or would never have a large impact, right? Just every support would be the same as every other support. There would be no way to stand out as support. And clearly, there are supports that are far better than other supports, right? Even though they typically won't do the most damage on a team. Or if that was the case, at the highest level of play, at professional level of play, why don't we see Brand Zyra every single game, right? If those are the highest impact supports, if those have the most carry potential, then why do we see people getting, MVP? I don't remember. I think Afromu got MVP of the split or something. And, a lot of times they'll play Tom Kench and Braum, right, for example. So how does that happen? Why do people recognize that those people are the carries on their team? I mean, that's what MVP means, right? Most valuable player. How do supports possibly win most valuable player if in the highest level play if they don't have an outsized influence, if they're not carrying, right? So that's what we're going to be exploring in this video. Okay, so how do you win a support? All right, well, what makes support unique is the number one thing you need to think about. So vision control is obviously a huge thing. Supports are typically the only people that are going to be able to place a lot of normal wards, right? Way more than other people. Now, they'll typically buy more control wards, although at high level play, everybody's buying control wards. But typically, as support, you have vision. Now, why is vision important? Vision is important because it helps your team make better decisions. Okay, so this is in any strategy game ever. If you have more intel on the enemy than they have on you, and you're able to make better decisions, you're going to get a massive advantage, right? And that's the same way in real life, too. So vision helps you get information, which helps you make better decisions, which ultimately will give you a better chance to win a game. Right, now you might say, well, a lot of people don't pay attention to wards, they just get ganked anyways. You can pay attention for them, right? This is another thing in terms of shot calling as support, right? So you need to try to, and I've got Rift Kit pulled up here just so we can see some examples. You need to try to be sort of the eyes and ears for your team, right? And sort of the brain to make those decisions. So for example, if you drop a pink ward, up here in this river, while you're working bot lane, maybe after your first back, and you decide to put a pink ward up here, and then you see the enemy jungler, let's say like right here, and they're looking to make a play on your mid laner here, you can ping that, right? Like, yeah, the mid laner should be paying attention to that, but you also have a mini map. And if you're paying attention, then you should be able to ping that as well. You should ping back and question mark right there. Usually back ping to get people's attention. Then the mid laner, even if they aren't very good at looking at the mini map, hopefully they'll hear the ping and they'll say, oh, okay. And they'll back up a little bit, right? So you have control over that. So it's not only that you can put the vision down, but you can also work with that vision. So there's no excuse for not putting vision down. You know, you can't say, well, it's bronze, I don't need to buy control words because nobody pays attention. Because you can pay attention, right? You can take responsibility for that. Now, will they always listen? No, of course not. Of course they're going to make mistakes. This mid laner might still fight even if you ping, right? But it's going to increase the odds dramatically if you have vision and you ping that they're going to get away from a gank. Right? So that's really important as far as like defensive vision goes. Now, as far as offensive vision goes, this can help you make decisions as well. So if you have a pink ward here, you know, and you've got this this whole area, you know, warded up and locked out. Let's say you have a ward here, and let's just say like maybe a ward here, and then we'll drag this pink ward, and you're using this pink ward offensively to lock out vision of this bush. Well, now, if you're a support, you know, you can roam over here with your Alistar or your Blitzcrank or even your Zyra, hang out in this bush, and then because you have really good vision control, you know you're not going to get collapsed on because you have vision of all these areas, and you've got the vision shut out here. So now you can be the person. So when their jungler tries to roll through and make a gank right here, you can, you know, perhaps blow them up over this wall with Zyra. Or if you see they're about to make a gank right here, and then you have, you know, your junglers over here about to make a play, and they try to go in on your mid laner, and then you can collapse on them with your jungler, right? And so just having that vision is not only defense, it's not only to stop ganks, but it's also so that you can have offense, so that you can make more plays, you can get more kills. I mean, one of the most powerful things you can do in solo queue, and I'll guarantee you, if you master the art of doing this, you will win a ton more games. You'll get like 3 or 4 divisions just right off of doing this alone. In the mid game, you know, if you're on top side, ward here, typically ward here, although you could move it into that bush if you want to. Pink Baron, tell your team to all sit around Baron. Just have everybody sit right here, lock out vision. As soon as somebody comes, kill them. That's it, and just do that over and over and over again. If you kill a couple of people, you can do the Baron. If not, I'll promise you they will just trickle in here, just like ants. They'll just trickle in, and you'll just get kill after kill after kill, right? So the first person's going to come over here. Maybe it's a support, tries to ward right here. Just boom. Jump on him, kill him, dead. All right? And then you just sit here again. Just wait a couple more seconds. Now everyone on their team's going to be freaking out because they're going to think you're doing the Baron. They're going to walk up over here. Boom. Engage on them. Kill them. Then if you get 2 or 3 of them, do the Baron. Rinse and repeat. Is that simple. That will work like 90% of the time in lower elo. If you just get control, even in higher elos, this works a lot. You just get control of the Baron area. Make sure they have no vision anywhere in here. Use your sweeper. Use your pinks. After you clear out the Baron, another key tip you can do here is move your pink ward up a little bit. So make sure the Baron pit's clean if you're on top side. Move your pink ward up. And then just make sure that all of this is clean as well. So that they don't have any like sneaky vision. Because like higher level supports will, and this is a way you can kind of defend against this, will put wards in weird spots. So it's less likely to get found. So sometimes you might see a ward here from bot side to defend. You might see a ward here. You might see a ward like here over this wall. You know, sometimes you might even see a ward like over here. But people will start putting wards in tricky places to try to get around the pink ward, so you want to be aware of that. If you're on bot side, you want to ward here, here, and typically here, and then put your pink ward here. You can actually ward, like, probably there. And that should give you vision of this pit. Now, it's more dangerous to take it as blue side because people can always, it's a lot easier for them to jump over this pit and go for a steal than it is for them to come in here to go for a steal. So it's a little bit more dangerous to do that, but you can still do that, and there aren't as many great places to hide here. Like, the number one thing you'd want to do probably is just, like, hide around this area. Or hide around here. or like here and just wait for them to come through the jungle to catch him. So it's not as good of a position as on red side, but it still works pretty well. So that's a major thing. That is you setting up vision for game-winning plays, right? If they come and face check that, that's because you have the good vision and you directed your team to go there instead of the Clown Fiesta, right? So that is winning the game, right? Like, that's not doing the most damage in the game, but that's it's establishing vision and shot calling to win the game. Or if you prevent, 3 different ganks middle so that your mid laner stays safe, or you lock out vision in this river and you're able to roam up and down the river as like Blitzcrank or something and make a couple of plays middle, that could potentially win the game, right? So you don't have to do a ton of damage to win the game. I have a full video on vision control also. Just check out my 5 tips for better macro. I'm not going to go into it as much, but this is just an example of how you can win the game off of vision, right? So be sure to check that out. Okay, so shot calling is another thing. We'll talk about that a little bit more. So setting up for like a Baron bait is a good way to shot call, but we'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a second, how that also applies to the laning phase and to AD carry specifically. Flexible role and priorities. This is another thing that allows support to win because you have some of the most flexible roles of anybody in the game, right? Because you can be a heavy damage dealer with like a Zyra and a Brand. You can be an initiator with something like an Alistar or a Rakan. You can be a really good peeler with someone like Braum or Tom. And you can also be, kind of a buffer, with Janna and Sona and Lulu and scale up that way. The plus healing and shielding stat is very strong. They are nerfing it a little bit next patch. This is patch 8.11 when I'm making this video. I'm going to have a separate video about that. But that's more flexible than almost any other role in the game in the way, and like the things you can do as well. So you can be very aggressive in lane. You can, just try to farm up in lane. You can roam. So there are just so many different champions that are viable, and there are so many different approaches to the game and win conditions you can try to create to help complement your team. And so I think it's one of the most flexible roles in the game a lot of the time. And so that's potentially really powerful. And then you have very efficient itemization also. So you have the most powerful item actives in the game a lot of the time. So if you think of like Redemption and Locket, those are game-winning items that you're in control of. And that's one way that Riot has tried to balance recently supports to give them more power, to give them more carry potential, is to give them these very powerful items and item actives. And that compensates for supports not having a lot of gold. So historically, people think, well, you get a lot of gold, you buy items, you have more stats, you have more influence on the game. True, a lot of the time, but they want supports to have high impact. And so they created items like Redemption, like Locket, that do have a fail rate. They do have cooldowns, but they help you a lot with team fighting. And Banner was a decent choice, and ZZ Rock Portal in the past has been a decent split push choice. I wish that they would balance that. I'm going to talk about that. Just check out, I'm going to make a PvE video that's talking about like the support changes and where I think support should go. If you want to check that out. I'm not going to go into that too much here, but that's one powerful thing about supports is you have very, very powerful items with Redemption, Mikhail's, Locket, Ardent Sensor, Zeke's. All of these are very, very powerful items in and of themselves. So they don't require a lot of other items to be effective, right? So critical strike items require multiple items to be effective. You think of things like Ginsu's, is okay. It's a good single item power spike, but it gets much more effective once you get other items to go along with it. Right, whereas to some extent support is like that, but also to another extent, then they can function very well on low gold. Okay, so that's another powerful thing of support. Okay, so you can win a support even if your AD carry is bad because support is a powerful role that stands on its own and has its own very powerful aspects like vision control, shot calling, flexible role, and efficiency. And that's something that's unique in many respects from other positions. And you might say, wait, you can shot call from any position, so that doesn't really count. That's true, but as a support, you don't have to CS. That's a major thing. And that's seen as a disadvantage by a lot of people. It's like, oh, I can't CS, I don't get gold, or people deride support and say, oh, that's stupid, it's no skill, they just sit there, they don't CS. But if you're actively using that extra brain power, then you can pay attention to the map more and shot call better. So think of it as liberating. I don't have to pay attention to CS, right? I don't have to try to last hit. So I can use my brain to watch the minimap more and, share that brain power with the rest of the team, right? I can watch and call out their ganks. I can shot call things across the map. So, like, maybe they just got to kill top lane and they have 2 people that can take Rift Herald really quickly. I can ping it and tell them to get Rift Herald. Or maybe our jungler is getting invaded at red buff, but they're so busy, you know, trying to fight the other jungler that they don't have time to ping, or they're just not thinking to ping for help. I can ping for help for them, right? So you can do all sorts of things, communicate on the map to shot call more than any other role, because you don't have to CS, you don't have to focus on that. That's why almost always in professional games, mostly the shot callers will be either the support or the jungler, because neither one of them has to pay a lot of attention to CS. If you're good at jungling, you don't really have to pay attention to the camps that much. But support is one of the best positions to do that with, so that's a somewhat unique power to the support role that's potentially shared by the jungler as well in some circumstances, but support's in a great position to do it. Okay, so let's talk about how to deal with AD carries that fail. And let me just first preface this by saying there are some games that are unwinnable. Just understand that. There are some games that are unwinnable, and that's okay. That's just the nature of anything where you're going to get random teammates, right? So that means that, you know, you can watch this guy and some people be like, but I had this AD carry that went 0-20 and rushed, you know, some stupid item and just kept suiciding into the enemy team. It's like, yeah, that happens to everybody. You know, you're going to lose some of those games. But the thing is, you can potentially win some of those games. So don't get, don't get too downtrodden and think, oh, there's no way I can possibly win because I have all these clowns on my team all the time. It's like, yeah, you can. Not every game's winnable, but more games than people think are winnable. Okay? It's not like, oh, first blood, that's over. You know, game's over. It's like a silver 3 game or something. First blood, game's over. You know, you can come back. People will throw. They will make mistakes. And League has lots of comeback mechanics to help you get back into the game. Okay? So, you know, and this happens to everybody. If we just look at op.gg here really quickly. Let's look at this. Almost everybody who's up here, right, who plays a respectable amount of games, almost nobody is significantly higher than 60%. People who have like 300 games or more, right? Almost nobody is higher than 60%. There are a couple of 60% people, but you notice most of them have like 200 games. They do not have that many games comparatively to some of these other people. But look, almost everybody, even the top players in North America right now, are going to have a win rate that's less than 60%. So what does that mean? That means they lose 40% of their games. The best people in League of Legends, who, you know, ostensibly are the hardest at carrying, still lose 40%. If they play 10 games, they're going to lose 4 of them. You know, they're going to lose, all of these people are going to lose somewhere between 4 and 5 games out of every 10 games that they play. So if the best people can't win every game, other people certainly can't win every game, right? Said nobody wins all the time. There are losses, there are games that are unwinnable, but there are always ways to improve your play, and there are ways to get your percentage up there to move from like 50, 51% to try to get up to that 55%, which is ideally where you want to be to climb. You can climb with 51%, but you could even climb with 50% if you just win the right kinds of games, and you dodge a lot, but that's very important to keep in mind, okay, is that everybody loses games. Everybody goes on loss streaks, even some of the best players in North America. I'm a Cutie Pie recently. He's almost always near the top 10 of rankings for the past, you know, 7, 8 seasons. He's almost always near the top, and he's recently lost like 500 or 600 LP in the last week or two, which is like an entire division. That would be like dropping from like, you know, gold 1 to silver 1 or something effectively, right? So everybody has bad times. Okay, so keep that in mind. So people out there who are just like, but I can't win. I keep getting these 0-20 people. Yes, you can't win some games, but you can win more than you think. I can't emphasize that enough. That's a very toxic mentality, and it's really hard to progress if you have that idea, if you think every game's just a coin flip and you're not going to be able to win. I also have a video on luck, so be sure to check that out, where I sort of debunk the idea of a coin flip and what that actually means in terms of, and the big kind of spoiler in that video is that it's a mental construction that we create to help ourselves feel better, right? To help us feel like we're liberated from control, like we don't have any agency, right? And that's what a lot of people will do to try to escape responsibility for things. They'll say, oh, it's unlucky, it's unfortunate, or whatever, and they'll just try to rationalize that there's nothing they can do about it. When in fact there is, just sometimes it's kind of hard work, and it takes a little bit of thinking and adjustments. But anyways, watch that video on luck if you want to know more about that. I think it's a very interesting. It's one of my favorite videos, and it gets pretty philosophical and interesting, not only for League of Legends, but for other stuff as well. But anyways, okay, so how do we deal for this? How do we plan for underperformance? That's what you need to think about. Is statistically, your AD carry is going to fail 50% of the time. If you just watch bots that are all the same ranking or whatever, if you just think of all your teammates as bots, like, oh, this is just a Platinum 3 bot, or whatever, versus if you just spectated games, just randomly, you had no idea, you took the nameplates off, and you were to try to bet, well, that gets into the meta, like whichever AD carry is stronger in the meta is going to have a higher percentage chance to win, but if you just looked at people in Champ Select and just took their nameplates off and didn't see which champions they picked or anything about either team, if you're just like, is the team on the left going to win, or is the team on the right going to win? That is actually a coin flip. That's 50-50, ideally, because of the matchmaking system. Now, there are some games that are slanted where the matchmaking system doesn't work, but if you watched 100 of those games, it would be 50%. So that means that half of your AD carries, statistically, are going to underperform the other AD carry, at least in some capacity, depending on how you want to think about that, right? Now, you have a lot to do with that in lane as support, and sort of what the jungler does has a lot to do with that. What mid lane does has a lot to do with that. But just understand that people are going to fail quite a bit, and that it's not unusual for people to fail in the bot lane, for AD carries to fail. Also, it's a pretty bad meta right now for AD carries if you're not playing Lucian or Kai'Sa, because all of the crit just got nerfed. And a lot of people, anytime there's change like this in a major role, then people just don't understand. They don't know how to play. And look at this. This is an example from last night's stream. You can see from the chat here, we had the Turkey of Turkey AD carries, right? This is a, I think it was a Plat 4, Plat 5 game. We had a Twitch that went 1-10, rushed Infinity Edge. This is patch 8.11. Rushed Infinity Edge first, and then he got a Zeal after that. He rushed Infinity Edge, and at 24 minutes in the game, he has 130 CS. Which is just atrocious. Atrocious. We win this game. Spoiler alert, we win this game. And you think about, well, how did we win this game? Well, I gave up on the Twitch at one point. And Renekton was like 5-1 top lane. And Kane was doing okay. He was like 4-3 or something. So I just gave up on the Twitch. I didn't leave the lane and just straight up, mute him and just leave the lane. I was kind of around him until the lane broke. But after the lane broke, I just said, you know what? Who's doing well on my team? Renekton's doing well. I'm just going to follow Renekton around. And we made a couple of really big plays where he tried to dive in and made what seemed to be almost a pretty dumb mistake several times, where he would try to 1v3. But then I would flash over a wall and E on to him and, ult combo, ult W, and just shield him through it. And we'd barely pull it out, and Renekton would get away with 100 health, and we'd 2v3 people. We did that a couple of times. And that's really what propelled us to get back into the game. That's how we came back and won, was off of the Renekton. And then Kane made a couple of really good picks too. And so it's important to understand and try to plan around that your AD carry is probably going to fail. And be realistic for your elo too. If it's bronze or silver or whatever, a lot of people are still learning the game. People might be auto-filled. There's going to be a lot of issues with that. So just don't expect them to make the right play all the time. Just understand and anticipate that they're going to make the wrong play a lot. And speaking of that, you need to let people die. If people do stupid stuff, let them die. Okay, that's one of the hardest things to do as support, is to back out. But it's really important that you don't give extra kills to the enemy team. And it's not an excuse to say, well, I got baited by this person. If you got baited, that's your fault. That means you didn't understand the situation. You didn't understand it was too dangerous, and you tried to go in and save them, and you gave the enemy extra kills. Right? And I'm guilty of this. I do this all the time. So I'm not trying to sound too accusatory, but I'm just trying to instill responsibility in people. It is your fault if you get baited. It is your fault if you decide to play a game that looks really bad. We'll talk about that here in a second. But You need to learn how to let people die. If you watch a lot of high elo players, and I've watched some supports, and I remember watching some con streams, and I was trying to learn top lane a little bit just to understand the game a little better. I did some normals, played some top. I played like some Camille and some Fiora for fun. That if a Clown Fiesta breaks out and people are doing stupid stuff and the situation looks bad, Con just walked away. He's like, nope, done, out. And that's what you have to do. And yeah, are they going to question mark you? Are they going to be mad about it? Sure they are. You can mute them if they have a problem with it. Because people aren't going to understand. They're going to say, but if you would have just tower dove this with me, we could have got it. Or if you would have just dove the second tower, if you would have followed me, we could have had it. Don't argue with them. Don't listen to them. You need to learn and figure out for yourself what's a good idea. Because if you just play like everybody else, then you're going to have the same ranking as everybody else in your elo. If you're in Silver 3 and you're playing like other Silver 3s, if you're following their calls, if you are getting caught up in these Clown Fiestas all the time, you're going to be Silver 3 elo. You have to rise above that. You have to let them die. You have to figure out the appropriate shot calling for yourself, shot call it, and do not listen to bad calls. If someone's trying to call Baron when one enemy team member is dead and they have like a fed AoE damage around you, or just anybody that's fed that's around you, don't do it, right? If LeBlanc's just standing around the Baron pit harassing you while you guys are trying to do Baron, don't do it. If the jungler is sitting there in plain sight ready to flash over and try to smite the Baron, don't do it. Don't do smite fights. Don't try to do Baron. Like, don't do stupid calls. If someone's trying to tell you to end the game and two Nexus towers are up and you tab and the enemy team's about to spawn in 10 seconds, don't do it. Leave. Because they're just going to ace you and go get the Baron or something, Like, you have to just let people die. Try to talk them out of it. Try to get them to not do stupid stuff. Ping back. If they're thinking about diving, ping back. If they're thinking about doing a stupid Baron, ping back. But if they're going to do it, just let them die. Just leave. Because what happens is when you follow up, if one person dies, it's not usually a catastrophe, right? There's still 4 other people on the map, and 4 people, in theory, could defend something like a tower or a Baron or a dragon or whatever, right? But if 2 people die, if you try to follow that person and 2 people die and now it's a 3v5, they can much more easily force things like Baron, like towers, because you matter, right? You are an important person as a support. You have a lot of crowd control typically. You have other assets to your team. You have the Redemption, the Locket, the Ardent Sensor. You have a lot of multipliers, force multipliers. And also, when you die as support, if you die a lot, your vision's going to go down. And it becomes more difficult to replace that vision. So they get a huge edge. So if you're, if your wards have... Like, if you have wards in your inventory, if you have 3 or 4 wards in your inventory off of your Sightstone and you're about to go, replace your wards if they're going down in, 30 seconds, and then you get involved in a stupid Clown Fiesta and you die, and those wards go down while you're in the spawn pool, then all of a sudden you don't have any vision on the map. And it gets extremely dangerous to go replace that vision later in the game. So whenever you die, whenever you do that, not only are you giving an extra kill to the enemy team, you're making it exponentially easier for the enemy team to get objectives off of that kill, and you're potentially losing your vision, which can snowball even harder because then they can get more picks on your team or more picks on you when you try to go replace that vision. So let them die. Trust me, it is worth it. Even if it's pretty close, right? If it's well, they're probably going to die, but maybe I can save them, just let them die. Now, some champions are better at trying to save foolish allies than others, right? Like enchanters that can play really far back, like a Nami or maybe a Janna can run it, can try to throw a heal or a shield, maybe. You can try to do that, but if you're a melee champion, and you try to jump in there with Alistar or Braum or whatever, it's a death sentence. You're going to die. And this is why tanks are so difficult to play in lower elos, because a lot of people will try to save foolish allies, right? You'll see your AD carry is overextended and gets caught out in this gank, right? And then you want to try to go save him as Alistar. But then it ends up, you just die anyways. And so, let them die, right? That's the most important thing you can possibly do. Saving people is good, but the real lesson is letting people die and learning how to do that with grace, right? So learning how to lower your own deaths to where you only have 3 or 4 at the max deaths per game. That's something you really, really need to work on, is expect them to make stupid decisions. Expect them to be in bad situations a lot. But just let them die most of the time. Okay? Another really important, so that you can kind of know what you're working with, is do your research in champ select. I'm guilty of not doing this all the time. But you need to do your research. So, for example, let's just take some people here. Let's just type in. Now, how you can do this in the league client, I don't have it open right now, but you can copy paste. Just hold down your left click. You guys know how to copy paste. Just copy paste when it says such and such has joined the chat at the beginning of a lobby. Just copy paste that up here into this where it says name 1, name 2 on op.gg, and it'll tell you all of the people there. So if we just do Tarzan, well, it's not gonna let me do this. We could do and then you could type in more people, up to 5 people. Oh, I need to put it up one here. Oops. I need to put it up top, not the search. There we go. So you got to put it in this top place, not the search place, I think, and that should do it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so if you saw something like this, if you're just, you know, you do your op.gg review, you'd say, holy crap, I need to dodge this game. We have a filthy platinum in here with challengers, right? Like, that's what you should be doing. You know, potentially. Now, maybe it's not that extreme, but you could look at something. Now, these guys are going to be good on almost everything, but you could see Sven is, like, not going to be that great on, like, Jin, for example, or, you know, Tarzan's not going to be that great on Olaf. So, you know, and the reason that you're doing something like this with op.gg is you're not doing it to hate on your teammates. And I've had people ask me this in chat, well, why are you doing that? You're just tilting yourself, or you're just creating negativity and hating on people. You're not hating on people. You can do this completely disinterested, totally chill. You're just analyzing this. You're just looking at data, just like you would look at any kind of data, like an investment, right? You're just reading the prospectus of the company you might invest in, right? You're just listening in on their conference call. Or somebody has a business deal for you. You're just going over the paperwork, right? To see, like, what's actually in that. You're not disrespecting that person that you're looking over the, you know, the paperwork for this business deal. You're not disrespecting your mortgage company when you're looking over the mortgage to, you know, make sure you understand the terms and sort of what's going on. You're just doing your due diligence. You're just making sure that you have the right information to make a good decision. Right? So we do this in the professional world all the time, right? It's called vetting people. It's called looking into stuff. It's doing background checks on things. If you're an employer and you're trying to hire somebody, you know, you're going to want to do a background check. You're going to want to see their resume. Well, what have they done in the past? How are they qualified for this? You know, it isn't just, it's not disrespectful to ask a potential employee to give you a resume, right? That's just being informed. And so I don't know why it would be disrespectful to go and look at the resume that people are bringing to the table to decide if you want to play a game with them, right? To decide if you want to hire them for your team. If you want to think of yourself as kind of like a manager of sorts in this. And you need to think of yourself that way. You need to think of yourself as someone who is trying to rise above whatever rank you're in right now. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to be really arrogant or mean about it or call people out in chat. Like, you don't have to say something like, hey, Sven, don't play Jin. You suck on that in chat. You don't have to do that. You can just look and see and just say, okay, if, you know, if he's on Jin, just assuming, you know, let's just take away, just forget that this guy, this is a professional player and this is the #1 person on the ladder. Just forget that for right now and just look at the stats and just think, okay, you know, if this person's on Jin, if this person's on Olaf, you know, if I'm playing Alistar, and we have somebody else who's playing on something that's 40%, that should be a red flag, right? Because that's your resume. That looks bad. Now, does that necessarily mean this person's going to fail? No, of course not. Just like if someone has a 61% win rate, that doesn't mean they can't have a bad game and lose. But you're just gathering information and trying to make decisions, you know, and look for autofills. That's really important. You know, if you have 2 or 3 people on your team that are auto-filled, so if somebody has, you know, 700 games as jungle and they have 5 games as AD carry, and they're playing AD carry on your team, they're probably going to underperform. That's not their fault. I would underperform if you threw me, you know, top lane or something against, and I've got maybe 3 top lane ranked games this season, and I'm against, you know, a one-trick Riven Smurf or something who's got like 80%, or I'm against, you know, a Yasuo player who already has like 1,000 games on Yasuo this season, I'm going to lose that lane. I'm going to lose it. It doesn't make me a bad person. It's just being realistic, they have a lot more experience. Of course they're going to be better. Why wouldn't they be? So there's no shame in that. And there's no like saying that somebody's bad because they get outplayed in that. That's just, so it's not the person's fault they got autofilled. They didn't sign up to get autofilled. That's just how Riot's matchmaking system works. Or if you have someone, if you're, you know, Platinum 3 and you get a Gold 5 in your game, this happened to me last night, like, and I was critiquing, you know, I was like, man, this is going to be tough. I should probably dodge this because it's Gold 5. And somebody, I think, you know, there's always that one person in chat that's like, but you're being mean or whatever. It's like, no, I'm not saying it's their fault that it's Gold 5. That's just how it is. You know, if I was Platinum 3 and they put me up against someone who was Diamond 1, I would get my butt kicked. Probably, right? Because I'm not ready for that yet, clearly. Right? Maybe one day. We're working towards it. But I'm not ready for that. I'd get destroyed. So I'm not saying that I'm better than other people. That's just how the system works. If you're placed against people that are dramatically higher ranked than you, you're probably going to fail. Right? It's like if you put a high school basketball player up against a college basketball player, the high school basketball player is probably going to fail. If you're just talking average versus average. Obviously, exceptions abound all over the place, but that's the rule, right? Not the exception. And so you need to do your research. And I have an entire video about this called How to Win in Champ Select, which is talking about when you should and shouldn't dodge, right? And so you need to think, if there are 3 things that are suspect on your team, if people have a really low win rate on an off-meta champion, if people are auto-filled, or if people are just playing champions they don't have a lot of experience on, you know, if it's a first-time champion in a game, even if they are playing AD carry, if they've never played Caitlyn and this is their first time playing Caitlyn, that's bad, right? And so if there are 3 things that are really squirrely in Champ Select, you probably need to dodge. Sometimes 2 things if they're really bad, right? If it's something that's very off-meta, they are auto-filled, and they're playing it for the first time, that is extremely bad, right? So if it's 3 strikes on one person, that's really bad. So you need to think about these things. You need to think about, do you have enough win conditions? Does your composition make sense? What is the enemy's composition? Do they counter you really hard? So you need to be questioning all these things. I have a whole video on it. I'm not going to go into it right now. But, you know, just check out the Champ Select video. It's on the main channel under topical guides. But think about it. Do your research. Ask yourself this question. Should you dodge? Should you not dodge? And the answer is probably you should dodge a lot more games than you're currently dodging. Almost always. You should definitely use your first dodge of the day, your 3-point dodge, every single day. It's a 3 LP get out of jail free card. Like, you need to be using that every single day. And oftentimes you need to be dodging a 30-minute 10-point LP dodge also. So, pay attention to matchups. So just think, okay, are we going to win this lane or are we going to lose this game? How should I adjust my picks to compensate for that, right? Because if you pick something that's really aggressive like a Zyra, right, and your ally picks something that's really pretty passive early on, or it's not going to be that strong like an Ezreal, and, you know, the enemy team has like Draven and Leona, you're going to have to dial back that aggression a bit. You can poke, but you're not going to beat them in a 2-on-2 all-in, like, pretty much ever. You're going to have to wait on the jungler for help, and so you need to be able to make adjustments. Right? You need to be able to not just pick the same champion every game and just approach the lane every time the same way and think you could win. It's like, should you be aggressive? Yes, of course, you should be. That's the hallmark of rising in rank, is you should take advantage of every opportunity that you can in lane. Don't let any opportunity slip by, because a lot of times the stuff that holds people back is not what they do, it's what they don't do. Right? It's because they don't harass enough in lane. They don't try to make enough proactive plays on the map. They don't ward enough. It's not always, well, they chased and got killed. I mean, sometimes that is, and that's easy to identify. But more times than not, it's that they don't do enough. They play too passively. But You know, that's the rule, but sometimes there are exceptions you have to think of. Sometimes you have to adjust. So just because you're playing Zyra doesn't mean you can just go all-out aggression all the time. If they have a stronger early game than you, if the jungler camps you, if the mid lane has really heavy roam pressure like a Twisted Fate, and they're dominating mid lane and they might rotate down on you, you can't be aggressive all the time. Right? So you just have to pay attention to the matchups and think, what can you get away with? So be as aggressive as you can be, but don't just be blindly aggressive every single time, right? Or if you're a Leona, don't engage every single chance you get to engage if the jungler could be camping you, right? Or if your AD carry doesn't follow up. This is another thing, is pay attention to AD carry behavior. That, you know, I'm going to talk about it in the laning phase here, but I can talk about it a little bit now, is... you know, think carefully about what are they doing. Do they help you trade? Well, we'll just, since I have it all organized for the timestamp's sake, I'll do that in a second so people don't get confused. We'll talk about that just 1 second. But yeah, pay attention to the matchups. Understand if you're going to win the lane or not. Play supports that scale well. Play supports where you can come back if you're losing. You have a good chance to come back. Try not to play supports that are super snowbally and are virtually worthless if you fall behind. So enchanters historically can be pretty good because they scale off of the raw plus healing and shielding stat. Now that might change a little bit next patch, 8.12, but for right now, 8.11, enchanters scale really well. So if you play something like Janna, you can fall behind a little bit in the laning phase, and that's fine because you have such powerful shields with such powerful steroids later on in the game. So for example, the Janna shield, as of right now, gives 40 AD, which is, I believe, a BF sword, which is 1350 gold value, right? So it's like you're giving a free 1350 gold value to your AD carry off of that shield. That's not even including how much damage it can mitigate. That's just saying you just throw it on them straight up just to give the extra AD. So, you know, if you think of each CS is worth, I don't know, just 15 gold just for easy math, you can theoretically be behind up to 90 CS. Now, I don't, you know, you shouldn't necessarily try to fall behind 90 CS. But the point here is you can be behind in Janna. Your AD carry can be behind in CS, and you still help them catch up. So if your AD carry can't last hit, and they fall back like 40 CS, which is not too uncommon, it does happen, then if you play a champion like Janna, and you have that shield, you can put the shield on your AD carry, and that's going to compensate for up to 90 CS. Hey, Mommy, thanks so much for the sub. I appreciate it. Just because you play Janna. So just because you pick Janna, you basically give your AD carry an extra 90 CS once you reach level 9 with that shield. When that shield is up and active in a fight, you're giving them 90 CS. So that helps to compensate to scaling. Another one is like Lulu. You know, if you give your AD carry an extra, whatever, 45 attack speed, attack speed's 25 a pop, that's 1125 in gold value. So you're giving them an extra 1125 gold value. That's the equivalent of, you know, somewhere in the ballpark of 75 CS, or the equivalent of like 3, almost 4 kills worth of gold. And I've talked about this in my Janna and Lulu videos. That's kind of the hidden power, and that's why they're nerfing enchanters, is because they have so many buffers. For if you have a bad AD carry and you're playing an enchanter, just the fact that you have something like Lulu's Whimsy, Lulu's Picks, Ardent Censor, Janna, just all of the stuff that she does, someone like Sona's healing that she can put out, someone like Soraka's healing that she can put out. You know, every time Soraka heals somebody for like 220, you know, that's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 550 to 600 gold value that she does on a 2-second timer. It's just like, boom, there's an infusion of 6. Now, it's not exactly the same. I know people are going to say, but that's not the same because they don't have the health all the time. And, you know, that doesn't scale with abilities that scale with plus bonus healing and stuff like that. Okay, fine. Like, it's not exactly the same gold equivalency. But you can see the theme here, right? And that enchanters give these huge buffs for, you know, in a team fight, that's almost the same thing, right? Like, you don't have the scaling, but that's health you have to go through to kill this person. that in many ways is equivalent in that moment, in that team fight, you know, that 10 to 15 second team fight, that is the equivalent of buying that much health because she's restoring that much health. So this is why enchanters are so good, because they cover up for turkey AD carries. You know, if your AD carry has a really bad time in game, like, you can just give them all of these extra stat equivalencies, and that helps compensate, so it's not going to matter as much. So in other words, if the enemy has something like a Tahm Kench and you have a Soraka, a lot of the time, if that Tahm Kench is not proactively using that ult to make a lot of ganks happen, to get serious macro advantages and gain, you know, gain advantages in that way with his ult, or if he's not saving people a lot with his W from crowd control, then the Soraka or the Janna or whatever is just going to run him over because you have all of the extra stats. So play champions that are really good from behind, like enchanters, and there are some other champions like Rakan is really good because he can make plays really easily and safely. That's the key. Is Rakan is one of the only enchanters, I guess, that can really proactively make plays on a fairly low cooldown with his ultimate and get out safely. So unlike Alistar or Leona, who can go in and start fights, they are a lot less safe, because if your team doesn't follow up, you're just going to die, right? Whereas with Rakan, if your team doesn't follow up, your AD carry just sits there like a turkey and watches you when you engage in lane, you can at least get back out with your shield and not die, right? So that's something to consider, is you want to play champions that scale really well. And just consider dodging, like I mentioned before. Okay, so in the game itself, and I don't want this guide to be too long, we'll make it probably about an hour, but a lot of this is just really important to understand conceptually about what it really means to win. So during the laning phase, how do you put all of this into action? Okay, so we did our research. We're going to let them die if they do something stupid. We're adjusting our expectations. We thought carefully about the matchups, and we're playing, you know, a high-scaling support that's good with our composition. What do we need to be paying attention to laning phase? So watch the AD carry's behavior. Okay? So the perfect play is not always the right play. Okay, let that sink in. The perfect play is not always the right play. And this is something I'm guilty of a lot of times too, especially if I go on a loss streak and I lose a lot of elo and I'm starting to move down into different brackets. You have to adjust your play, because people are just going to not play as well. And sometimes, you know, especially early on in the season, I'll try to force what's the perfect play, what's the correct play in a sense, but is not the right play, right? So maybe it's correct to try to get this dragon, right? So if you get a kill, it might be correct to get the dragon, but if your AD carry doesn't listen to your call and they just back, even though they have half their health and we could do dragon, if they just back and you try to force that dragon, and then your AD carry's not there, your mid laner doesn't rotate, and then the jungler, the enemy jungler and support come down, and the top lane teleports down on top of you, and, you know, they kill you and your jungler and steal the dragon, that's your fault, because you didn't back up. So yes, it was correct to do dragon there if your AD carry was paying attention, if your mid laner rotated, but they didn't. So it's the wrong call, right? Or maybe it's the right call to fight around the Baron pit, because you could potentially catch somebody out, but your jungler is not paying attention. Your AD carry is down clearing, you know, bot lane. You have to look at your minimap and decide that. Maybe, you know, and you can shot call, but sometimes you just can't stop that jungler from doing wolves at 45 minutes in the game instead of, you know, positioning around Baron. Like, I literally, the other day, we had an AD carry. We're all positioning for Baron. It was like 40 to 45 minutes in the game. This AD carry had 6 items, full items. And this person walked over and did wolves instead of positioning around Baron. Our jungler started a fight. I jumped in to try to help him. We got cleaned up before the AD carry got there. And then they just marched it up middle and won the game. So, you know, should that person be over there doing that? No. But it's my fault that I went in on that, right? So the jungler went in. I should have just let the jungler die. Said, you know what? AD carry's not here. We just got to let the jungler die. And then pray that we can defend the base 4v5. But because I went in, then our mid laner went in too, and then we started fighting a 4v5. So yeah, is it the AD carry's fault that they're over there doing wolves at 45 minutes when they have no, like, appreciable advantage to gain? Because they have 6 items and, like, 300 CS? Yeah, it's their fault, but it's my fault also for going in. So the key here is you need to pay attention. If you're trying to go up for trades, you're Nami, and you're always going up, you know, trying to land your wave and your auto attack, and you're trying to land some good trades, but then the enemy is like Sona and Lucian, and they just trade back damage on top of you every time. So if you do that a couple of times, and your AD carry just sits there and like tries to AFK farm the wave, and they never harass with you, you're gonna have to stop harassing at some point, right? So if you're losing, you know, if the Lucian's losing 20% of his health every time you do that, and you're losing, you know, a third of your health, if you do that twice and you're at a third health remaining and he's at half health, you're going to have to stop, right? So you can communicate and tell your AD carry, hey, help me harass, or we can fight, or something like that. You can try to get them to do it, but if they won't do it, they're just not going to do it. And you have to play around that. You have to say, hey, he's not trading, so even though we have a major advantage early on, even though we have like Draven Nami against, you know, Lucian Sona, and we should be able to muscle them up early, AD carry doesn't want to do it, they're not going to do it, and you have to adjust, right? You need to watch also, is your AD carry missing a lot of CS? Now, you don't need to point that out to them, but you need to think, okay, this person might be auto-filled, this person might not be used to this champion. Like, you need to be taking notes in your head. Not to be negative, but just to think, okay, if you see enough of these things, if you see that they don't trade with you, if they miss a lot of CS, if they're forcing really bad trades, so maybe it's the opposite. Maybe they think you should be aggressive and you know that you shouldn't be. So if the enemy has, you know, Lucian Nami, and you have, you know, Ezreal Rakan or something in lane, and this Ezreal keeps eating forward into the Lucian to try to fight him in Lucian's minion wave, you need to take note of that. Because you need to be thinking, this person might be unreliable, so I need to plan ahead and think about getting other items so that we could potentially, you know, win off of somebody else. So in other words, if you have this Twitch on your team, you need to recognize this early on and just say, I'm going to try to play off of somebody else. I'm going to try to play off of Renekton, or I'm going to try to play off of Heimerdinger, right? To just think, I'm not going to use, so an example of how can you do this, you might say, okay, well, I'm going to donate my control ward to help mid lane. Right? So if you're bot lane and your AD carry is failing, you know, you're falling behind in CS, or they've died a time or two, then you need to think, okay, well, it's not worth controlling this area because we really can't make any plays, and we're just getting pushed in a tower the whole time anyways. So maybe you're just constantly getting pushed in because your AD carry like refuses to like last hit or try to match the wave. Sorry, just moving this down here. Let's say this is the case, then after your first back and the jungler just obviously doesn't want to come help you, instead of placing your ward here, which is where it mostly is, because their AD carry, they're just going to come over here and clear this. If you're getting completely muscled up and beaten up and your AD carry just doesn't know what's going on, you're not going to be able to fight over these control wards, right? So they're just going to clear them. So it's a waste of your resource to do that. So what you can do instead is just drop your control ward up here, right? Help your mid laner out. You know, if your mid laner's 3-0 and your AD carry's like 1-3 and is down 40 CS, give the pink ward up here. Put it right here. Put it over here. Help your jungler out. Make sure that they don't roam down to dive you by warding up here. So just use your resources there. You know, if you're playing something like Janna and you're thinking, okay, well, I could either get Ardent Censer here or I could get Redemption, maybe you should get Redemption instead. Because with Redemption, you could throw the Redemption to the mid lane. Like, you could walk up to, like, right here, toss your Redemption mid lane if there's a fight breaking out, influence that, help your mid laner out with that semi-global pressure. Because what's, you know, you may not need to get Ardent. Maybe there's not a point in getting Ardent if your AD carry is Jhin or something who doesn't benefit heavily from Ardent anyways, and they're behind 40 CS, just get Redemption so you can help other people on the map. So it's not to be negative or to hate on the AD carry, to pay attention to their behavior. It's just to make intelligent choices, okay? They're making bad trades. I don't follow them in. I'm not going to die, you know? Or I've got to stop being aggressive because they're not following up with me. So even though I should be aggressive as Nami or Zyra or whatever early aggression support, maybe I just can't do that anymore because they're not going to follow up, and it's just ending up badly for us. That's important. Another thing to watch is the tab info, okay? So you need to look at items, and you need to look at power spikes, okay? So here's an example. We got pulled up here. So if you see them rush something like Infinity Edge first, you need to say, okay, I'm done with this person. Because not only do they not know what's going on, but they just wasted like thousands of gold and resources. So sometimes, even if somebody's ahead, and this happened before in games, and I'm sure this happens to people all the time, they buy the wrong items. And so even though technically they might be ahead, if their items are bad enough, then they actually might be behind. So I had a Lucian the other day who, what did he get? I think he rushed something like Rapid Fire Cannon, and maybe it was, I can't remember what it was, but maybe it was like Rapid Fire Cannon into Infinity Edge or something like that. I don't know. Like, that's mildly viable, I guess, but it was something that was really off. It was not Essence Reaver, and it was not Blade of the Ruined King, and those are the two strongest items on Lucian right now. So, kind of like what this guy's building, this is a terrible build. Like, this is part of the reason why they lost this game. Because he ended up going Stormrazor, and then he's trying to go into like a Zeal item, which the Zeal items are usually pretty bad. Like if he had Essence Reaver instead of this Stormrazor, they probably would have won the game much, much earlier. But he wasn't paying attention, so it was a really bad item. Similarly, we have Twitch here with rushing Infinity Edge. So you need to be aware of that. You need to say, okay, well, just because we're ahead in gold doesn't necessarily mean that we're winning. You have to look at the items. So every time you're walking back to lane, you need to tab and say, okay, do we have an item spike? And you need to try to understand power spikes with items. I have a video on that on the channel as well, if you want to watch that out, or if you want to watch that, talking about how itemization works in different power spikes. But like if you come back to lane and you're Lucian on your team and you have Blade of the Ruined King, and let's say Twitch was actually trying to buy his appropriate item. Let's say he's trying to get Hurricane to start with, or he could get Blade of the Ruined King to start with. I think those are the two items. Like, those are the only two options for Twitch right now to start with. You want both of those. You want Hurricane and Blade of the Ruined King, but the order in which you get them is probably debatable. I would rather see Blade of the Ruined King because it helps you out with your laning phase. I think a lot of people are sleeping on that item. It's a really, really good rush item. People have forgotten the spring of 2017 when Bork was overpowered, and one of the main reasons that it fell into line was the cost increased. Well, now the cost has been decreased back to 3,200. So I think Blade and Essence Reaver are the two best items to rush right now. And once people figure that out, we'll have a different meta. But anyways, that's a different discussion. But the point here is, if you see that you have completed the big item, if you have the Blade of the Ruined King and they just have components, they just have their Bilgewater and their recurve, and they haven't completed it, you need to force a fight. You need to say, okay, we're going to fight. We're going to take advantage of this. If you're strong, you have to be proactive. You can't just sit there and let your Lucian farm when he has a major advantage. You have to go after this Twitch, right? You have to say, what on earth is this guy doing? Like, he has two BF swords. He's going for Infinity Edge. We're going to go in and we're going to bust him up. And that's what they did. So even though he had kind of wonky itemization, you know, he was still doing well. He just could have done better. But yeah, just punish and bust up this Twitch. Right? And so you need to watch that. You need to watch the power spikes. Watch other lanes too, not just your lane. So you need to be thinking, okay, we're watching Rengar. Somehow, through some miracle, at 25 minutes of the game, when he's 8-4, he doesn't have a Duskblade yet. So, so that's something that you can be thankful for. That's another thing. If this guy just went Duskblade instead of Tiamat in the jungle, he would have slaughtered us. Absolutely slaughtered us. He would have been like 15-4 at that point of the game. But that's how Kayn got back into the game, is he rushed the Duskblade. So you need to be thinking about these things and saying, okay, you know, their mid lane LeBlanc just finished her, you know, Gunblade or something like that. So I really have to watch out now. I don't know if she gets Gunblade anymore. She may not. She might go Ludens. Anyways, if she has her big power spike item, you need to watch out for that. You don't need to be caught off guard. You don't need to say, wow, I didn't know that person did that much damage, because you should know. You should tab and you should see it. I mess up. I do it all the time. So I don't do all these things all the time, which is why I'm not a higher rank than I am, right? If I just did the things that I know I should do, that I know about intellectually and theoretically with the game, I'd be a higher level. But it's different. The execution is very different from the knowledge, but the knowledge helps you improve the execution over time. So anyways, so tab, look at the items, understand, should you fight, should you not fight, should you avoid this person, right? So if I'm on their team, I'm going to do everything in my power to avoid this Renekton, because he is a beast. Essence Reaver is overpowered on him. I have a video about that. If you just watch my top lane tier list video, I talk about this. It's super strong. I know it looks troll because he doesn't use mana, but it's very, very good. The reaction, or the interaction between the cooldown reduction per hit, his W, and all of his other abilities is just super, super strong right now. So if I'm them, I'm avoiding this Gator at all costs. I'm not ganking the Gator. I'm not doing anything if I'm on their side, right? So I'm going to try to just pound this Twitch until he AFKs, or I'm going to try to maybe use Anivia and push through Heimerdinger, because I think Anivia can clear his turrets pretty easily with her, I don't know if her ult clears them or not. But either way, I'm trying to play around our strength, which is Lucian and Rengar, and I'm trying to avoid Renekton. You know, and conversely, the thing that I'm thinking about is support. I'm going to play around our Renekton. I'm just going to let Twitch die, and I'm just going to play around like Renekton and Kayn and try to get picks on easy targets. So we're going to try to pick off Lucian and Teemo, or Rengar if we can find him. We're not going to chase Singed. We're not going to try to siege Anivia. We're going to try to find one of these soft targets and squish them. So that's what you need to be, you know, thinking about and going through that, you know. As you're walking back to lane, especially, tab and think carefully about what should we be doing. So think about the items, think about the power spikes, pressure as much as you can safely. We talked about that. Beware of ganks. Now, that's very important, especially in 8.11, and it doesn't look like they're going to change this anytime soon. But it's very common for people to pick early game junglers, Grades, Zen, stuff like that, and then just camp bottom lane. Just mercilessly just sit on the bot lane. So they'll take Scuttle, they'll go bottom. They'll do a full clear, they'll sit on bottom. And then the mid lane will also come bottom a lot. And they just gank and sit on it, because enchanters are the best supports right now overall, but they're very susceptible to ganks. Most of them, not Rakan, but like Lulu, Janna, Sona, all of these champions are very susceptible to ganks typically. Janna's a little bit safer than your average bear, but you know, a lot of these champs are very squishy. They're very easy to blow up. They're very easy to kill, because support itemization is terrible for tanks right now. So you need to be safe. You need to expect that. Don't be surprised when they gank you, because it's going to happen a lot in a lot of games, right? And so you need to be very careful about that. So do not die to ganks. Do not let your AD carry die to ganks if at all possible. Ping it. If your AD carry is trying to pressure up, you know, if they're trying to go up and harass under tower like this and you don't have wards over here, you need to ping them back and just say no. Just don't. It's not worth it in this meta right now, in most circumstances, to try to harass this without vision, because the junglers will just come down and kill you. You know? They'll come down here, or they'll pop over this blast plant, or, you know, they'll get behind you, and you're going to die. And then the game is so snowbally right now. You know, you can come back. There definitely are comebacks in the game, but it is very, very challenging if a hyper carry gets fed, which everybody's running an assassin that scales super well, mostly in the jungle, and then a lot of the popular AD carries are these super snowbally high-scaling champs like Lucian and Kai'Sa. So, hey, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for the sub. I appreciate it. So you need to be aware of that, and it's just not worth it. And you have to ping them back, and if they don't back up, you need to back up, and if they die, whatever, they die. But you need to be aware of that. You need to respect the jungler, respect the ganks. This is an extremely gank-heavy jungle right now. That nobody's playing farming jungles hardly, except for maybe Master Yi in some circumstances. But nobody's playing farm junglers, right? This is all about just gank and sit on bot lane meta. So you need to be very aware of that and try to be as safe as you can. As far as roaming goes, I do hear this a lot. Well, if your AD carry's bad, let me just roam. The problem with that is it's much more likely that your AD carry is going to die if you roam. So yeah, I'm just saying, like, let them die, but at the same time, don't put them in a position where they're just going to automatically die. And that's what happens when you roam. So if you try to roam up mid lane like this, You know, you try to roam over here. Let's say your AD carry's bad. They're like 0-2. You try to roam over there, and they're still going to stay up here and pressure. Then the enemy support AD carry ganks them. Not only are they going to die, they're going to be really mad about that, probably. Even if you get a kill mid lane. The story that I always use for this is back in the Malzahar support meta, which was like winter of 2016 into early spring of 2017. I remember I roamed, and I got 2 kills. So I popped 6. I roamed immediately, got a kill mid lane. You know, Malzahar's ult was on 120-second cooldown back then. And then 2 minutes later, roamed mid again, got another kill. We didn't have an opportunity to get a kill bot lane because we had an Ezreal AD carry against something else that was better than Ezreal, which is almost anything in solo queue. But the person said, if you leave lane one more time, I'm going to go AFK. I tabbed, looked at the CS. He had virtually even CS. It was like 143 CS for him and 145 for the enemy. I said, dude, we just got 2 kills mid lane. He said, I don't care. And I think that is just perfectly emblematic of most AD carries' attitude. They think you are there to serve them. So if you aren't in the area, they might just go AFK and you're going to lose the game. So I highly recommend not roaming a lot on most supports while the towers are still up. Because you're going to leave your AD carry alone. There is an extremely high probability they're going to die. So just think about, like, okay, if you're trying to roam middle, right, let's get some of these people out of here. Let's think about what can happen here. All right, so let's say that you're trying to roam up middle here. What are the scenarios? Okay, so 100% your AD carry is going to be vulnerable. I guess not 100%. There might be a smart AD carry every now and then. So 90%. Your AD carry is going to be vulnerable. So at a bare minimum, they will have to back up. If they're smart, they'll back up, and they're going to get pressured off of the wave. Okay? So they're going to get pressured off the wave. They're going to lose CS. Right? So let's say that if you roam and it takes 30 seconds to get up the river, try to make a play, and run back down the river, they're probably going to miss at least half a wave, if not an entire wave of CS, right? And so they're probably going to lose somewhere between like 50 to 100 CS, or 100 gold worth of CS. They might even get zoned off of experience. Also, you are losing experience, so you're losing a wave worth of experience. So they're going to hit 6 before you if you do this pre-6. Okay, so you're losing experience. Your AD carry is potentially losing experience. They're losing a minimum of 60 to 100 gold. And most of the time, they're going to get engaged on. And there's a very high probability that they're going to die. Okay, so I would say that if you roam, I don't have hard stats, but I would say if you leave the lane, there's going to be minimum of 50% chance they're going to die. Probably closer to 70%. It just depends on what the ward situation is here. Because that's another thing. This might be warded. Right, the enemy might have this warded if you don't have this swept. This might be warded. There might be a pink in here somewhere. The mid laner might have this warded. If the mid laner sees you on a ward right here, bot lane is 100% going to engage on you and kill you. It depends on what their team comp is. They're going to engage. If it's like Draven and Leona, they're going to get engaged automatically even if they don't see you. They just see the support's not there, they're going for it. Even if the support is there, they're going for it, right? But I mean, if it's like Soraka, Ezreal, maybe they're not going to go for it as much. But if they see you roaming, they're going to try. So if this is warded, then this is completely going to fail most of the time, and your AD carry is at huge risk. If it's not warded, okay, so you're up here. Maybe they don't see you just yet, so your AD carry is getting zoned off of stuff, but they aren't getting engaged on yet. Now, think about what's really popular in the mid lane right now. It's got like Vladimir's really popular. Talon's popular, Zed's popular, Fizz is popular. A lot of pretty mobile assassin type of champions are popular right now in the mid lane. So you can try to go in and gank. It depends on which support you are too. If you're trying to run up here and gank as Soraka, that's not going to work. Or even as Zyra, it's too hard. But if you're like, let's assume you're like Alistar or Blitzcrank, you know, it depends on what your mid laner is too. If your mid laner is a Malzahar and they can flash ult, you're going to have a better chance. But if they're just like a standard mid laner without a ton of CC, you know, you might only have like a 50% probability to get a gank off. Let's say you have a 50% chance of killing. Well, they have a 50% chance of killing you down here. You have a 50% chance of failing here. So these odds aren't stacking up very well. So, you know, the most probable thing is that nothing's going to happen here. Either it's going to be a trade, you're going to get a kill here, and they're going to trade a kill bot lane, or nothing's going to happen in either lane. And then the doomsday scenario, like the 25% chance. So you basically have a 25% chance of a positive outcome. And obviously these are really like janky stats here. But, you know, the positive outcome is you get a kill and they don't die. Bot lane, right? The other outcome is neither lane gets a kill, in which case you lose because you are rotating through the river and losing experience, right? And this person's losing CS and potentially experience down here. So that's like 50% chance. And then 25% is catastrophic, where you fail your gank and they get a kill down here. And that's actually, I'm telling you right now, that's more than a 25% chance that's going to happen. But even just assuming all of these potential events are equally probable, it's a 75% chance that something bad's going to happen, right? So the only scenario that's good here is you get the kill and this person survives. But even if you don't get the kill here and they don't get the kill here, that's still a loss because of the rotation. So if nothing happens, it's a loss, right? So you only have, you know, in this very loose, basic demonstration here, you only have a 25% chance that something good's going to happen. So that's why I don't recommend roaming a lot early. Now, once the towers go down, that's a different story, because then you have more opportunities to roam around. But during the laning phase, it's really, really risky. I know we always remember that one Alistar that took over the game and roamed around and just made plays everywhere. The Blitzcrank that just was all over the place. We always forget the time when people tried to roam and failed and lost incremental advantages bottom, like they lost a wave, because it's not as flashy, right? So we remember the flashy stuff, like the Alistar, you know, getting 3 kills early, but we don't remember all of those times the AD carry lost a wave because the support roamed. So that's important to keep in mind. Just a few more minutes here and we'll move on. So what's the moral of the story here? Think very carefully about roaming. Do not do it automatically. If you're going to roam, you need to have mobility boots, and so it needs to be after your first back probably, and you need to have the lane pushed up and in their tower. So for example, if you're Alistar and you just really want to roam, you know, they have like a Diana middle or something that's very vulnerable. You need to make sure you have really good vision coverage, so you need to sweep this bush and here to make sure they don't have that warded. You probably need to drop a pink, like either here or here. And you need to have them push in a tower. So you need to have a wave in their tower right now. You need to ping your AD carry back. Your AD carry back's like in a bush where they don't see him. And then you can sneak up here with your mobility boots, try to make a play, and then try to get back down here as fast as humanly possible, or as cow possible, I guess, after you do this. So you make a play, okay, it works or it doesn't work, you run back down the river. Okay, so you probably need to try to take something like water walking if at all possible. You need to get mobility boots, and you need to have vision control of this river. And I would only do it if there's an extremely high chance you're going to get a kill top lane, right? So it can't be that 25% standard chance. It has to be, okay, they have someone who's really immobile. You know, they have a Diana who's pushed up here. You know, maybe the Diana's pushing up to here or something like that. So they have a lane that's pushing, and you have CC here. So you have something like a Swain or a TF, Twisted Fate, or just something that can help you out with the gank, right? It can't just be Alistar trying to run in against Vladimir, who is already pinned against his tower, right? So it just requires a lot of macro knowledge. It requires a lot of coordination on your team. It requires a lot of vision control. And this is why sometimes it's powerful at Challenger, but it's really a fail strategy for people like Bronze, Silver, even Platinum and Low Diamond. It's just not going to pay off most of the time. Okay, so finally, after the laning phase, you need to identify the strongest member on your team. I've talked about that several times. Use resources to help this person. So get items that help them, right? Get wards. Use your wards on them. Use your cooldowns, like I was talking about in this video. You know, like I was using my ult every time around this Renekton. I was running to where he was. I was shielding onto him, using the ult to try to make plays. I was giving vision to him. You know, I was lighting up the enemy jungle so I could run around with the cane. So I wasn't warding for Twitch in the bot lane, who was just AFK farming and dying like every minute. right? I wasn't warding for him because it's not worth it. Because something's just not right about that guy. Either he's drunk, or he's high, or he's auto-filled, or like, there's something extreme that's really wrong with this guy in this game. So there's no point in using resources on him. He's just going to be dead weight. And so don't waste all of your wards down here. Don't waste your time sitting down here and helping him farm. Just let him die. If he's going to die, and go help other people. Just go help the Renekton. Go help the Kayn. And if he has a problem with it, this guy was actually pretty chill about it. He didn't say anything all game, so he wasn't flaming. I mean, sometimes if someone's threatening to go AFK, you might have to make some concessions there. But if someone's just like standard flaming you, question marking you, just go ahead and mute them and just move on. So that's important. Think about the strongest person on the enemy team. I've talked about that several times. Avoid them. You know, if you're the enemy team, do not fight Renekton. They kept trying to do this. This is partially how we won. Is Renekton came out of lane. He was like 4-0 or something against the Singed. He's still down like, you know, 33 CS to the Singed. But they came out of lane and they kept trying to like double team him. You know, they would send like Lucian and Renekton and try to go hunt him down. Well, I showed up a lot of times from the shadows, out of bushes or flashing over walls or whatever, and I was able to turn it around and get kills because Renekton was so strong. If he just gets a little bit of help, a little bit of CC from Rakan, then we won like 2 or 3 3v2s. You know, they would send Lucian, Teemo, and Renekton at him, while they'd have Singed splitting a side lane and Anivia just doing whatever Anivia was doing in that game. And we would still kill them because they were trying to fight our strongest person. They should have kept... Like I said, they should have just kept camping the Twitch. Or trying to maybe invade the Rakan. Or not the Rakan, the Kayn. Just stay away from their strong people. Now, sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes they group up and force you to deal with their strong people. Or sometimes, you know, that LeBlanc just sits on you bot lane even though she's fed. So sometimes you can't do this. But if it's possible, don't seek them out. Don't try to fight the strong people. Pick on the weak people. That's how you win League of Legends. You snowball your strong people. You don't allow their strong people to snowball. Okay? And then just think about your team comp. Like, what does your team do really well? Do you team fight really well? Do you split and pick really well? So do you split push and pick people off really well? Do you siege really well? And some of this is going to change depending on what's going on. So right now, it looks like, in theory, we could have a decent team comp at some point. Now, we were caught up in this game by this point, so this is just where I paused it. But, you know, at one point in this game, we were probably down like 10 or 15 kills and a lot of map pressure. But then once I started playing around the Renekton, then we were able to pull off the win eventually. So, watch this game if you want. This is from the 6-4 Rough Games But Good Times. It's the very last game on the stream. So, if you want to go see, like, how to come back in a game, go watch that. How to win when your AD carry is terrible. That's exactly what you can do to win. So, I'm not going to clip it and put it in this video, but you can go find it on your own. It's right there. It's the 6-4. It's cataloged on the stream. You can just type it into the search engine. You'll find it. The search on the stream. Or search on YouTube, you can go find it and watch that. So just watch it. It's the very last game. It's time-stamped in the description. You can just skip straight to it. But yeah, that's the perfect example of how to do it. So we had to adjust, you know. So we could, in theory, be a team fight team, right? So we could, if Twitch was better, if Twitch was 10-1, we could be a really strong team fight team. Twitch can also work with, like, assassination, picking people off. But we also have a pretty good assassin team. Like, Heimerdinger can team fight pretty well. I can team fight pretty well. But we can also pick people off. So, like, with Rakan, Kayn, and even Renekton, we can try to pick people off. And they have a lot of squishy targets, right? So we want to avoid their Singed is also 1 in 10. So keep that in mind. You know, they also have somebody who's failing on their team. And that's something that is easy to lose sight of, too. Right, as sometimes we focus so heavily on, well, our team is failing, my team is bad, my AD carry is terrible, but oftentimes there's almost always somebody on the enemy team that's also failing. Right, so Singed is also 1 in 10. Now, Singed does have bordering on 100 more CS than Twitch does, and he does have the correct items, and he can operate better when he's really far behind because he can split push. And this is why Singed is not on my tier 1 list, by the way, as well, because this is such a common score on. It's like, you know, a KDA of like 0.5 or something on most Singe players. Now, there can be good Singe players, but this is why I have him at tier 2 and not tier 1, just as an aside for my top lane tier list. This happens all the time. But anyways, so we had to transition and just say, you know what, we probably can't beat him in a team fight. Lucian's super strong, you know, Anivia's strong. So we're going to have to try to pick him off. And that's what we did. So we transitioned. We said pick is our best prospect. We're going to work around Kane. We're going to work around Renekton. We're going to get good vision, and we're going to pick him off. And that's how we ended up winning the game. So just think about what's your best win condition, who's doing well on your team, how do we make that happen? And then just shot call, be vocal. As I said, you know, most people get held back not by what they do, but by what they don't do. So shot call. If you get a kill, ping dragon, ping tower. If someone's about to get ganked, ping it. Say, you know, be careful, get out of there. If your jungler is getting invaded, ping it. Say, hey, go help this person. If your jungler is trying to invade, but you're pushed into your tower and you can't go help them, ping back. Ping back and just say incoming. Ping their pictures. Ping the timers. You know, ping your timer on your ult. Let them know, hey, don't fight. There's 10 seconds on my ult. Just ping your timer like 3 or 4 times. Just ping everything. Ping if they got a big item. Right? So, like I said before, if the enemy team, if this Lucian completed his Blade the Ruined King and Twitch is just sitting here on a BF sword, ping Blade the Ruined King. Say, we can't fight. Or say, we can fight. If you're Lucian and you have the Blade the Ruined King and they're just sitting there on a BF sword or something, say, let's fight. Ping it. You know, ping your level, ping their level. Ping, if they're about to hit level 6, you know, ping it a lot. You know, ping 5 a lot and say, careful, they're about to hit 6. Just anything you can think of that communicates information, just do it. And if people, you know, want to tell you shut up or you're pinging too much or whatever, then that's fine. You can mute them or you can show on it a little bit. But your default should be give as much information as possible that's productive and helpful to the enemy team. That doesn't mean question mark people like 6 times when they make a mistake. There's a difference in that. That doesn't mean pinging their stupid items. You know, that doesn't mean that I ping Twitch's Infinity Edge like 5 times. And say, you know, why did you build that? You know, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being productive, being helpful, and relaying information to help your team make good decisions. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this video. It's a little bit longer than I wanted, you know, but there's a lot of in-depth content on the channel. So just to kind of really quickly recap, you can win as support, but you don't necessarily have to play around your AD carry. If your AD carry is weak, then adjust, play around other people. So in general, if people are doing dumb things on your team, let them die. Do your research and champ select. You know, make sure that you have a team that makes sense, that you can actually compete and win against the enemy team, potentially. Don't be afraid to dodge if it's a bad-looking game. During the laning phase, specifically with AD carries, watch their behavior. Take notes. Don't be mean. Don't be salty, but just take in the information, just like you're a manager reading, you know, a resume or a job application. Or you're reading your mortgage over before you sign it, or whatever. You're reading your cell phone contract before you sign it. Always read contracts before you sign them. But anyways, you're just assessing just so you can make smart decisions. It's not to be mean. It's not to troll. It's not to flame. It's to understand what's going on, right? So are they helping you trade? Are they CSing? Are they forcing bad trades? Are they making bad decisions? And then you adjust your play around that. You say, well, maybe I can't trust this person. Maybe I can't go in for this engage because I don't trust them. Maybe I have to stop trading because they're not following up with me. Maybe I should buy this other item that's going to help out my mid laner rather than an item that's going to help out the AD carry. Maybe I should go for that redemption instead of Ardent Sensor. So just take this into account. You don't have to say anything about it. You don't have to be mean or salty. Just be cerebral about it. Be chill. Be even-headed. But just make good decisions. Because if you're not thinking about these things, you're not making good decisions. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. And sometimes that could be the wrong choice, and that can end up costing you a lot of percentages in your win rate. Pay attention to tab, items, power spikes. What's your power spike? What's the enemy power spike? Do they have core items? Not only for the AD carry matchup, but also for every other position, right? We need to watch out for this LeBlanc. She just completed her Ludens. Or, you know, our Renekton's really strong. He just completed Essence Reaver. Let's try to fight at Dragon, and we'll tell him to teleport in. You know, just try to do that. Direct your team. Hurt them. Let them make good decisions. But all good decisions start with good information. And so you need to be processing this. All right? And just pressure as much as you can. Watch out for ganks. Be aware of roaming. And then just post lane. Just put those, you know, ideas to use, right? Play around your strong win condition. Okay. That's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll give you notifications when I create more content like this. I'm going to try to post at least one guide every day, one sort of individual support gameplay video, and then also I do the stream every night around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to come check it out. It's a lot of fun. We have a wonderful community. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on the stream. I'm very approachable, very friendly, very chill person. So come check it out. We'd love to have you. And that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.